biggest problem, it seems to me, is the fear about this animal. And this has been a deliberate fear. There is a culture that we built out about killing for sport. We have to decide which we want. Do we want to kill these animals? Or do we want to live with them in a beautiful way?
I learned about the trophy hunt through an organization called Pacific Wild, who have been actively organizing against the hunt for years. I saw a documentary that they put out and some of the advocacy work that they've been doing and really wanted to become involved. We're in the West Kootenays to monitor, document, and expose the trophy hunting of grizzly bears. Yeah, we were driving up this road a few days ago, saw a truck that was coming the opposite way, and when we pulled up next to him, he informed us that he was a grizzly hunter and that he'd shot and killed a bear recently and that it was in the back of his truck. So we got out and saw just a really gruesome scene. There was blood all over the truck bed, and the carcass of the bear was there, the head, the hide, the paws. When we left, we drove up to the kill site. There were fresh bloody paw prints, claw marks as the bear had been shot and tried to run for its life. And where we're standing right here now is where the bear ended up collapsing and dying.
This whole area was kind of a pool of blood that survived even the rain of the last 24 or 36 hours.
We've spoken to numerous hunters who are out here killing grizzly bears, and their attitude towards these animals is all the same, that they believe that it's not wrong to kill an animal for sport, and if the law permits it, they should be allowed to do it.
You know, I think people are really deluding themselves if they think that this practice is any kind of an extension of our legacy as a hunter-gatherer species. I mean, you see the amount of money that people spend on equipment to come up here, and it's tens of thousands of dollars on ATVs and very expensive trucks, high-powered rifles, you know, very expensive optical equipment to spot the bears. And, you know, I think if they think that they're really interacting with nature on any higher level than simply just using expensive equipment to extract a trophy, then they're really just, yeah, really deluding themselves.
A lot of guys, they hunt Africa with us, you know, it's like, what else you got?
What else you got?
Yeah, and you know, they trust us after going to Africa. They trust us because they know we provided a good hunt in Africa. And then it works the other way. Guys will come and hunt bear with us and say, hey, that was a great hunt, and now I'm ready to go to Africa. I know you guys, I'll go to Africa.
Yeah.
I was raised a hunter. I was taught to be a guide for trophy hunting. So I know what their ambitions are in killing, and it never sat with me. My father did a film about grizzly bears. He wanted my brother and I to be his cameraman. It was the first attempt at making a documentary of grizzly bears in the wild. While we were filming these animals, I was also just trying to understand why our story about them was so different than what I saw. They're so peaceful when you watch them. They're so intelligent. They're so wonderful with their cubs. All these things, I started to identify with them and not with our stories about them. And it has shaped my life. People didn't want to understand them as a wonderful animal. They only wanted to understand them as a terrible animal so that they could feel good about killing them. Now, we're getting a different type of people into bear management. People who like bears and who have entirely different attitudes towards them than they used to have. And this is what we've got to change. We've got to change their experiences with us. Now that people are going out and seeing these animals, it's harder for the rhetoric that they're killers that want to kill us every time they get a chance.
You know, I saw my first grizzly bear when I visited Yellowstone National Park in July of 2007. And there was a young grizzly bear foraging in the field. The grizzly bear actually came up out of the field and crossed right in front of our car. And since then, I've been visiting Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park every fall and spring in hopes of seeing a grizzly bear, and I've been fortunate enough to see them several times. There used to be 50,000 grizzly bears, scientists estimate, in the western United States. Grizzly bears were regularly shot, trapped, and poisoned. And now we're down to about 1,800 grizzly bears total. They're really important for the ecosystem. Deer and elk aren't going to sit in open areas when they have predators on the landscape. So along streams and creeks, so the vegetation there comes back, which in turn lowers the temperature of the water, provides more shade, which is better for fish. We were looking at a total, scientists estimate, of less than 150 bears in and around Yellowstone in 1975. And now we're looking at an estimated population of over 700 bears, which is great. I think without the protections of the Endangered Species Act, bears never would have reached this population. Once grizzly bears are removed from the Endangered Species Act, the states of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming will manage grizzly bears and indicated that they will allow trophy hunting. And we're nervous about what that will look like.
Shoot him again, dude. Get ready, get another one ready. You hit him both times. He's spinning. Hurry, hurry, he's up, he's up. Okay, that guy took some lead.
been doing the war thing for several years. There were times when I was totally burnt out and I just needed to get away from it all. And Canada became my kind of refuge for that, I guess. It became a sort of an oasis of calm and sanity and getting away from all the things that I was working in. My wife, then my girlfriend, Kristen, and I came to Winnipeg. I got a job with the Globe and Mail. And then one day we just took a trip out here in a beaten up old camper van and we saw this place, Grizzly Bear Ranch, and we thought, this is where we want to be, this is where we want to live, this is our dream. So when we moved here, we knew that there were bears around, but we didn't, no, we didn't have any experience and we didn't really think about what that meant. We were camping and she went off to the washroom and I was standing around and this little black bear came out of the bush, and I have to say it wasn't very big. And I looked at it, and even after sort of 12 years as a war correspondent, I just felt absolute total terror. And I turned around and ran as fast as I could in the other direction. And so that was my first meeting with a bear. It was the 1st of September, and we were literally out here in the yard, and a mum walked past with 3 cubs, a grizzly mum with 3 cubs, and Kristen and I just sat there with our mouths open, and we thought, wow, that is incredible. And we looked at them and we thought, well, if it's incredible for us, maybe it's incredible for a lot of other people too. So that's where the idea came from. I think what we offer here is something that's slightly wilder and slightly less predictable. You're not standing in a sort of an area that's fenced off or guarded off, whatever, viewing them. You're moving through their landscape. We had a bear called Apple, and we basically grew our business around her. When we could, we saw other bears too, certainly, but she was our kind of mainstay. Last year, she was shot on an $80 tag by a resident hunter. So the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we bring in every year to British Columbia has been put in jeopardy because of an $80 tag. In another case, somebody shot a grizzly bear just up the road. They put the skin on top of their car and drove through town with it. And I realized that it's just unfair on my guests to take them out in a situation where there are other people out there who are trying to shoot the animals that they are trying to view. Given the incidents that we've had, the clashes with hunters, we have closed our business in the spring.
The government has no idea how many bears up in this area at all. They sit in their office in Victoria, look at these habitat models, and they base population based on what they're seeing on their computer screen. There's huge gaps in the data. And the province continues to hand out all these tags, and so we've been trying to work at stopping the trophy hunt.
I've been working out here for the last 16, 17 years, a lot of it around bears, and in all my time I've never seen any government bear biologists out here.
And so it's really unfortunate how the province makes decisions, and this sort of methodology on how they make decisions on wildlife allocations has gotten them in trouble in other parts of the world, like Alberta. They almost wiped out all the bears in Alberta with this exact same methodology.
So that's why we wanted to partner up with the University of Victoria and start bringing up some scientists, and they can start partnering with local community members, and we can start getting out there and get some gumboots on the ground and get some science.
I'm a scientist with Great Bear Research Foundation and also with Raincoast Conservation Foundation. And I'm also a PhD candidate at the University of Victoria. We work on a bear monitoring program in partnership with several coastal First Nations. I work specifically with the Kitasoo Hey. And what we're doing is we're looking at monitoring the activities of these bears at a huge landscape level by using non-invasive methods.
Couple guard hairs on. Oh, we got another big clump.
So the idea behind these is that we want to know as much information as we can about these animals, but we don't want to harm them or interfere with their day-to-day activities in the process.
Check on this tree here. Sometimes they tend to rub up on trees as they're walking through the forest.
We get a little tiny tuft of their hair. And although it seems pretty minuscule and like it's not very much material, we can actually get a huge amount of information and data just from those few hair strands.
Some guard hairs in here as well as some nice little unders. So what I'm doing is I'm sterilizing this hemostat that we're going to use to tweezer off the bear hair so it doesn't mix up the DNA on the other strand.
So once we collect it in the field, we can take that hair sample back to the lab and see from genetics who that individual bear is as a fingerprint, just like you or I. We can also see species and sex. If it's a black bear, we can see if they're a spirit bear or if they're a black bear carrying the ability to have a spirit bear cub. And then further down in the process, we can even see what that bear's diet looked like and how much salmon, most importantly, they ate in the previous year. Maybe in the media or in stories, we think of them as these big, tough animals with big claws and big teeth. From sort of a population level, they're actually really sensitive. We know that when there's too much development, you don't find grizzly bears anymore because they need these big, wild spaces. So they're actually really useful as sort of an indicator species of how we're doing in terms of conservation policies and land use planning, because the bears are sort of the canaries in the coal mine.
For the novel scent, we use a different scent each round, and this time we're using loganberry. A bear's great sense of smell, you can smell up to 7 kilometers away. So we put this up so that it broadcasts the smell and they can smell it, and we'll lure them to our sites.
Well, one of the most important pieces is we're working with the next generation of decision makers. Folks that know this landscape the best, that know the streams they're talking about when they see it in an Excel data sheet. That those are the people that we need to be collaborating with, and science needs to be going to, so that they have the best available data to make their decisions.
I am from the Yellowstone Nation. They also have very strong ties with the Tsimshian Nation in Gitgat, as well as the Celtic Nation in Balabala. Well, I've moved around a lot since leaving Clum 2. I left Clum 2 in grade 6. I moved away back and forth to Vancouver and Clum 2 over the years, as my mom lives in Vancouver. After moving around as much as I did, I just really wanted to go back home, especially after having my son. Everywhere was home for me, and I didn't want that for him. I wanted him to be home. So. I got the Indigenous laws research position. I was like, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to relearn everything about my territory, my home. I'm relearning everything all over again because I took it for granted when I was younger. I got to sit there for all day, every day, just going through all these stories, old interviews, like reading interviews from my grandfather, my late grandfathers who have passed on, and hearing their voices through cassette tapes. It's beautiful, and then to listen to them telling those stories and just remember being a child sitting at his feet listening to those stories. In the bear mother story, they go berry picking, and the young lady picks the first 3 berries, and her elder tells her to throw them back. Don't keep those ones, you have to throw them back, because those are for the bears too. You take all of them, what are they gonna eat? They speak of bears as equals to us, because what are they if they're not?
Well, here we are at the head of the Torrey Valley, the center of the universe, as I call it. My sense of place is established here. And it's one of the most beautiful areas of the Rocky Mountains. And when I came here 41 years ago, it was the year that the grizzly bear was listed in the Yellowstone area. My grandfather had hunted with me, and he was a very Teddy Roosevelt type. He even looked like him. And he and I were kindred spirits, for sure. And I think it's very important part of the lifestyle here in the West. 1976, I went for a pack trip, and we called it the Pack Trip of Independence because it was 200 years after America's independence. We went up to Yellowstone, so the entire summer and fall, we were in the mountains, and we saw bears up there. It was a really special time. We decided, well, this is how you could do an outfitting business. Go out for 30 days at a time, and we'll have a great time. Yellowstone is pretty much the heart of wildlife in the West. It's like this huge repository of wildlife. We realized how valuable that wildlife is to this local economy, but also to the ecological economy of Yellowstone. One of the things that we feel privileged for is to only allow hunting on a sustainable basis. So sustenance hunting versus trophy hunting is what we promote. What I heard about a guy recently shooting a bear and then just skinning it out and leaving it, I was horrified that the callousness of a hunter that was just shooting that bear, black bear in this case, for its hide. You know, it's just a trophy hunt. And we just thought, what's the point here? Why shoot these animals? Why have someone who just wants to carry a grizzly bear hide and head home?
This is a totally different type of hunting than we see than folks putting food on the table.
You can go online and search for videos of grizzly bears being shot 3 or 4 times before they die.
Hit him again, hit him. Hit him, hit him.
I've been taught since a child, like, you don't kill anything unless you're gonna eat it.
I know resident hunters pride themselves on conservation and more of a sustenance hunt, but they shoot grizzly bears, which they don't eat. Nobody eats them.
If you're killing it for the way it looks, and you're putting a head on the wall, a rug on the floor, that's trophy hunting.
Most of their ideas, they're unpredictable, they're dangerous. If they lose fear, is an excuse to kill them.
We have this huge natural resource and we're not using it properly. If you see a grizzly bear, you'll have 25 photographers around it trying to take that photo. Each one of those photographers is buying gas, staying in a motel, buying food, having dinner, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
You know, what's going on in British Columbia, I can definitely foresee that happening here around Yellowstone. You'll have people here that are so excited that they saw a grizzly bear one day and then find out it was shot the next day by a trophy hunter.
We just want to see a land where everything can just be itself.
If you lose the bears, you lose the salmon, you lose the forest. I mean, everything's connected.
I want my son to actually be able to see the bears himself and not just it be something that we used to do.
I think this issue in general is a bit of a test of how, as a society, we want to choose to interact with other species.
The people decide on these things. We have to decide which we want.
The animal that represents British Columbia more than any other Should we be killing them for fun? Should we be killing them for sport?